first, we're going to take off with big news out of Kohl's this past week, which, again, Ann, leading off with Kohl's and Bed Bath & Beyond 2 weeks in a row. What is wrong with this world?
I don't know. I hope we can retain the listeners' attention. That's right, Chris. I know you're disappointed to find this out, but Kohl's is no longer for sale. In what was a many months-long process that saw Kohl's engage with as many as 25 companies, according to Chain Storage, and which saw the franchise group emerge as the most attractive bidder most recently at $60 per share, all deals are now off.
All
off the table.
Off the table.
Kohl's board chair Pete Bonaparte said this about the deal. He said, quote, "Despite a concerted effort on both sides, the current financing and retail environment created significant obstacles to reaching an acceptable and fully executable, I can't even say that word. Executable agreement.
Yes, I'll help you out.
Jeez. He then went on to add that Kohl's, quote, "is a financially strong company that generates substantial free cash flow and has a clear plan to enhance its competitive position and improve performance over the long term," end quote. Chris, this is so, I can't even read it. It's so
right?
bad.
Yeah, right.
But what do you think about this?
We're warming up vocally here this morning. I just think the whole thing smells off to me at this point.
What is sticking out?
Like, what sticks out to me the most is this part where he quotes a clear plan.
Okay.
Which I think is just absolute hogwash. Because if you remember, for those loyal listeners out there, you remember that this strategic plan is essentially composed of three main parts. And to remind those listeners of what those are, one is the focus on the assortment on the healthy and active lifestyle, which, as we've said many times, who doesn't do that? And why does Kohl's have the right to win that? Quite honestly, it doesn't. Two is the expanding the Sephora partnership. Okay, I get it, but I don't see a doubling in your share price from that over the long haul. I don't even see really that much of an accretive increase in your share price over the long haul.
No, it's another company.
Right. And yeah, it tells you something else too. Right. Great point. But my favorite part in this whole strategy is that they're going to build out 100 smaller format stores, which, fun fact, because I've been trying to get an answer from Kohl's on this, Ann, is that they said they've already tested the small format in 20 stores and plan to roll out just 4 more this year, which smells really off to me too, because okay, if you've tested it in 20 stores, which, by the way, I can't get a definitive answer from them on where those 20 stores are, and they've never been reported on by anyone. So, how does that work that you've done 20, you're going to roll out 100, but you're only going to do 4 this year? Something is off. Something is way off. And for anyone listening that is at Kohl's that maybe can shed some light on this, message us on LinkedIn, because I'm really interested to hear what's going on here. I'm trying to get answers from Kohl's directly. I'm not getting them in the way that I want. But yeah, something, I'm not. I mean, they're not, they're just sending me here's what we're doing next. But I'm I want to know what these 20 stores are. How much are you learning from them? Where are they? I want to go visit one of them, if possible, to put my own assessment on this strategy. Because honestly, who needs a smaller Kohl's, Ann? That's my point. That's why this smells off.
I don't know. See, I disagree with you. I think
really?
I think that based on what we're hearing, some of the strategies that we're hearing coming out of Kohl's right now is sell off and do lease buybacks and all these things. I think my biggest problem with this is that none of the moves they're making are trying to make Kohl's a better retailer. They're not making Kohl's focus on having a better point of view on the product selections. Even bringing a curbing inventory. You don't need, the Kohl's store is exploding with stuff. Just figure out what your reasons are that people are coming to the store and provide that footprint that includes those things. And I don't think it needs to be a giant Kohl's box anymore. And I think that if you then can't, maybe I'm oversimplifying this. I definitely could be, but if you could consolidate the space that a Kohl's takes up and then sell off, sell the second floor of the Kohl's. Do you need 2 stories of a Kohl's store? I don't know. And what could you get what could you be putting back into the company if you were selling off some of those assets completely?
I get your point there. Okay, yeah, I could maybe buy into the sale leaseback argument. We're going to sell the inventory, the store assets that we have, because over time we're going to get into smaller stores. But net, that means you're a less valuable company operating smaller stores and more of them, which if you had 25 offers on the table, would not be the best move in the interest of shareholders for the long term. I thought of an analogy that I want to use here that I think totally encapsulates my feelings on this, and it's a Seinfeld reference, Ann.
Of course.
There was a great Seinfeld episode where Elaine is dating this guy, and they both happen to think they're ethnic, and then they find out at the end of the episode that they're both white. And they're like, oh, so we're just a couple of white people? That's what I feel after this story. It's like Kohl's, you're just Kohl's again. Like
Yeah.
you're just what I thought you were from the beginning. This was a lot of song and dance, sound and fury, signifying nothing. I feel like exactly like Elaine at the end of that episode. It's just so disheartening in a lot of ways.
I'm gonna have to think about that analogy a little bit.
It's actually a perfect analogy. It's like, oh,
Okay.
we're not anything that great to write home about.